Stats. Stats have mattered in WoW since the very beginning, and they've become more and more important as the game has advanced and moved on. Ever since eye level add-ons were added to the game back in Wrath of the Lich King, and now we got IO, and we got eye levels for things and stats and all kinds of different shit that you can look at via your new ring and everything else. Stats tell a lot of stories. Or do they? Are stats just a wish-wash of bullshit? Do stats even matter? Let's get into some of this because Marcellian seems to have discovered that stats are really for nothing. Let's talk about this here and see what all this has to be about.
Welcome back to Marcellian Online, and if you can keep a secret, I have something to tell you. You've been lied about stats and gear in general. No, really,
no.
The current items that you loot season by season and even every new expansion that is being released are kind of a lie and really don't exist in an abstract way. Let me tell you what I mean.
What does he mean?
The video is made possible thanks to the support of our Patreons.
Of course.
You guys help keep our ideas and videos going and the channel growing as well. On behalf of the Marcellian Online team, thank you. The stats and items are a lie. There are so many ways we can talk about that, but the biggest...
I'll be honest, since item level got added into the game, does anybody really pay attention to stats? Because I understand some people do, and that's the right way probably to do it, to understand how your best parse will work out and everything else. But here's the thing. If you put best in slot everything and you stat it out perfectly so you can hit, Giga Chad hits the hardest, but your item level is now 5 lower than it could be, guess what happens when you queue up for something? People don't see that shit. They're not going to go check your parses. They're going to look at your item level and determine whether or not they think you should get an invite over John down the street who paid for carries and has a higher item level than you, but doesn't know shit about his stats. So do stats matter? All in all, I don't know what he's going to get into here, but realistically, no. The only thing that really matters is your item level.
This takeaway is that they don't actually exist, and by the end of the video I might actually ruin the concept of gearing in WoW for you. If you take 2 items of the same type, let's say 2 leather boots, and give them the same item level, both of them would end up with the same amount of armor, stamina, and main stat, while the secondary stats can be added up and will result in more or less the same amount on both pieces. No matter what you do, what dungeon you run, raid you clear, delve you loot, if the item has the same item level as any other item of the same type, their stats are exactly the same.
That's what I'm saying. Since item level became a thing, originally it wasn't. Originally that was an add-on. If you played in Wrath of the Lich King, you'll remember this. When item level came into the game, it was via an add-on that used to calculate item level based on whatever piece of gear you got, where you looted it from, all this, whatever kind of background math was happening. Once item level was actually integrated into the game, that changed things. And I think, by the way, it was called Gear Score, if I remember right, back in Wrath. That was like the add-on was Gear Score, and it had a Gear Score attached to it and everything else. Once item level was introduced to the game, that superseded everything else. The stats no longer mattered. All that mattered was pumping up your item level.
This means that when you choose an item, you never choose an item because of the amount of armor it gives, or the amount of stamina you receive, or even the main stat it provides. You choose an item because of its item level, since all stats scale with item level to decimals, sometimes rounded up or down. Just think about it. When was the last time you looked at the amount of stamina an item gave you and decided to wear it because of what you saw? Have you ever looked at the amount of armor a shield gives and got to the conclusion that the item is too weak for your tank? Nope. It was all...
The only time I've ever considered stats, like in the modern game today, is if the item level is equal. Or very, very close. But mostly, if the item level is equal, I'll be like, oh, this one gives verse and this one gives stamina. Which do I want more of? I'll go with this one because I like verse more than this. Okay, that's the only time I'll look at stats. Otherwise, if there's like a 5 or 10 item level gap, I'm just going with the higher item level.
All item level in the end. Secondary stats scale with item level as well, but there are 4 secondary stats and your item can only have 2 of them at a time. So really you are looking at 6 total pairs of boots: haste mastery, haste crit verse, crit mastery, and mastery verse. And if we want to be generous, we can admit that one of those stats will be the primary, aka the one you have more of, and if you flip the amount, you have 12 total boots. And that's being extra charitable towards the loot table. That's it. Those are all the boots you have, and maybe if you are lucky, you get them to roll a tertiary stat that will amount to absolutely fuck all, since you cannot reliably farm that tertiary stat
Yeah, it's
to
you and
ever
your
get a
luck.
relevant amount of leech or avoidance that will make a difference that you can actually feel in.
I will say, besides stats, like one other thing that people will consider when looting things is, oh, you get that one with the socket on it, right? You get that, you got some RNG going. Oh, you got the fucking belt that has the added socket on it. Okay, then maybe you try to just have a higher item level belt, and then you upgrade the socketed one to that item level, and then that's the one that you wear. Sure, that stuff also happens, but these things, they're too RNG based. Like you said, you're never gonna get enough, most likely, to stack it up to actually make a huge difference.
In the game. And let me double down on it. These 12
That's the thing, though, Stoic. They are important, but you'll never get enough of it to make a difference. Because if you did actually get enough leech as a blood DK, holy shit, you're about to freaking heal even way more than you were before. But you'll never get enough of it because it's so RNG based to actually bump up your healing.
pairs of boots are
It's just
the
a nice
same
little
boots
bonus.
you have been looting every patch and every expansion. There is no membranous slippers. There is just the crit mastery boots. Every patch has a membranous
Speed set.
slippers. Sorry, a crit mastery pair of boots. Every expansion has one also. What changes is whether you want crit mastery or another thing. You don't actually want boots, you want crit mastery, since all boots inherently come with armor, stamina, and main stat, which are equal to all other boots of the same item level. Blizzard could
go.
actually replace main stat, stamina, armor, and item level and call it something like item power. You collect this item power into what would now be your total character item level and scale your stamina and main stat with it, and you would have the exact same amount of health points, armor, and strength, or whatever. I'm not sure what your stance on this is, but to me, in an RPG...
I think Blizzard did fix this a little bit when they went back and changed the fact that you don't need crests to upgrade an item to a item level that you already have. So like if you had a belt that was 610 and you loot a belt that's 600, but it has more of the stats that you're looking for.
Come, servant.
George.
We have a realm to
Thank you.
destroy.
Thank you for the follow. Welcome to our Scourge. If that lower item level boot has the stats you want, or belt has the stats you want, you could just use Valor Stones to upgrade it to that level. You don't need crests anymore because you already have an item at that level. That kind of offset this a little bit, but still, at the end of the day, like if you don't have Valor Stones, or you're not planning on chasing them or whatever it is, guess what you're doing? You're just keeping the higher item level because that's the thing that matters more.
where I am supposed to find epic pieces of loot, this is incredibly underwhelming and disappointing. This is not new, by the way. This is the system we have been having for a lot of expansions.
Yeah.
This is what you get when gear is homogenized. You get a base template on top of which you add a minuscule amount of player decision, which in our case revolves around the secondary stat pair your character ideally wants. This would have been a boring gearing system back in 2004 when the game launched, which is why back then we had a gearing system a few dozen times more complex than what we have now.
It was more complex, but honestly, I'm not going to blame Blizzard on this one. It really was the gear score add-on. I'm telling you, the gear score add-on changed everything because that shit didn't exist. There was no item level attached to items. It was stats. When you used to play the game, right, the only thing that indicated any type of level of the item was the color of the name. A purple name was better than a blue name, was better than a green name, and the stats often matched that, so it didn't matter. But when you looted 2 purple items, they were the same. The only thing that was different about them was the stats, and that's why stats mattered, because people would look at them and say, okay, what's better for my class and my spec? Okay, I want this item, this purple one over this purple one. Once gear score came in, and players started using gear score for the queuing system and everything else, that changed everything. So then it was up to Blizzard, like, do we just let this gear score thing happen, or are we going to self-determine the numbers here and base loot based on that? Okay, we're just going to add this into the game. And that was it. This was a player-based driven change. I don't know if Blizzard ever adds item level into the game if the gear score add-on never came out.
Every item had a main stat on it, and there were epic items with no stats on them at all, but a powerful effect or just a big fat raw DPS if it was a weapon. There was no item level. There were just individual items with individual power. It would be a bit hard to judge the value hierarchy of items if they don't have a common denominator factor, but at the same time, that's what would make gear interesting. I can go over the fact that epic items don't exist anymore either. If you have a rare chest piece of a certain item level and a coincidental epic chest piece of the same item level, they would both have the same amount of armor, provided
Right.
both are leathers or plates or etc. The same amount of stamina also, main stat, and the sum of the secondary stats would also be the same. The colors on
Interesting.
items are pointless since, once again, they don't change the
Yeah.
value of an item. Only item level does.
That's true. Yeah, color doesn't matter anymore. Like, for example, you start a new expansion, your green items. Now, this always happened with expansion before item leveling existed, but a green item with a higher item level is better than the purple item you had from the previous expansion with the lower item level. We literally have legendaries from Legion that now have item levels that are like, what are they, 60 or something? You can't equip those right now. It's not. That's obviously not a thing, because item level is what matters more than color. Now, you'll say, I stand by the opinion that item level and damage meters made WoW more elitist. That's the thing that's interesting, damage meters. Why has Blizzard not added damage meters into the game? They added item level. Clearly, damage meters is something every single person basically has in this game as an add-on, but it's still an add-on thing. It's not an in-game thing, and I think that that might be part of the reason. It does breed toxicity. It does breed elitism. So I think Blizzard, even though they understand that it's like almost a necessary part of the game, they're like, we're just going to stay away from this because we'd rather this be someone else's problem. Like, this is an add-on. We're not going to affiliate ourselves with it because it breeds such toxic behavior. And we're not going to add it to the game because then that toxic behavior becomes part of Blizzard has made this behavior rather than an add-on has created this behavior.
So as with stats, we could just as well get rid of purples and blues and
True,
greens
Josh.
and just have items with item level on them, and the end result will be the same damn thing. The main problem with this style of items is that it's close to impossible to make them interesting, let alone epic. Because item level is the only real value an item has, it is the only real variable that the devs can influence to create strong and hopefully desirable items. As such, the problem that is created because of it is the item level inflation. This emerges in a few ways in the game. First of all, in between each season we have massive item level jumps where next season's LFR content will reward you with the equivalent of this season's mythic rewards. If you don't believe me, you can go right now in the
I don't necessarily agree with it's hard to make items interesting because we've seen legendary items come into the game with certain abilities that'll change your rotation, like Fearlath, like the Gavel from what's his name, Zoval, that piece of shit, bad expansion boss, but he had a cool weapon. And it did change your rotation. Those kinds of things are cool. Now, of course, Blizzard also bumps up the item level on them to make sure that, okay, this is best in slot, no matter what. Oh, and it also gives you this cool little spell ability or something. Those things make an item very cool and very exciting to loot. Other than that, yeah, the rest of your gear is just item level based. There's nothing exciting about it.
game, open up your dungeon journal and look at the raid rewards in Dragonflight. When you scale them by difficulty, you can see the item levels and how they change from one season to another. The reason this happens mainly is because we need players to have a big power to chase in the new gear system.
Right.
Outside of cool procs from trinkets and occasionally weapons, which I will get to in a bit, there is nothing else to chase except a bigger item level. And for the power to be felt between seasons but also visually on the tooltip of the item, the difference in numbers has to be high, where now we are doing
Thanks for lurking,
millions
Kobe.
of damage per second. This happened, I believe, twice before in the past, after which all of the numbers have been squished. Something you will experience going
it'll
into
happen
midnight,
again.
as the devs already confirmed. Because numbers go high.
Oh, did they? They confirmed it, that we're going to get another item level squish at midnight? I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. It has to happen. What, are we going to have item levels fucking over 1,000? It's ridiculous.
Then get squished, then go high again, squished again. It creates a disconnect between the player and the perception.
But I'll also say squishing is not just an item level thing. It's not an item level problem. It's like, look right here, the numbers. Numbers are a problem too, right? Like whether or not you're going to squish item level, the ability to hit a target for a certain number that's legible is a problem too. Because once these 361k, okay, classic WoW had numbers like fucking 50 and 700. Like, yo, you crit. Oh my god, I just crit for 112. That was a big deal. That's an easier number to read than 361,000. Let alone if they just let it keep going, it'd be like 7-8 million. If you guys remember, end of BFA corruption gear, you're hitting for millions. Like, how the fuck do you even read that stuff? So those squishes were going to happen regardless of item level.
of power that your character has. It has no power, really, in the grand scheme of things. The only power it has is relative to the content you do. If you go back to your 15-year-old self and tell him you are doing 1 million DPS in 2024, he will lose his mind over how dope and strong you are.
Right.
But if you wait one more
True.
year and tell him that in 2026 or whenever Midnight launches, you'll be doing 5k DPS, he'll be perplexed as shit and not understand it anymore. So really, can you say you are attached to how strong your character is if the number that's coming out of your fireball goes up and down every few years? The second problem this creates is that they cannot make main stat items anymore. Because there is a standard for what an item is, the power
Right.
scaled in its item level, the devs have to balance the content based on the relative power players have with their equipped item level that assumes a certain amount of armor, stamina, and main stat people will have.
Yeah.
Meaning that they cannot create a trinket with just armor since inherently it will most likely be useless. The tank that has to beat the raid or dungeon...
Well, do you guys remember the weapon? Oh my God, Jathis, the prison blade. You guys remember that thing? That thing was weird. Where if like you fed it other weapons, other legendary weapons, it would like its statistics would I think they would go away. So like eventually it had like no secondary stats, but it was like a crazy high what's it called, like ability that procced like really good. So like it would hit super hard. That was an interesting item too that got basically kind of proved that stats don't matter, because at the end of the day everyone was going to feed it the weapons to make sure that that freaking badass proc would happen as often as possible. Yeah, epic weapons. Sorry, not legendaries. Yes, yeah, but that was cool. Random question. Have you considered also streaming to YouTube? I have a premium and can watch you. Look, I will. Mugget, yes, I will. And I have considered it. The reason why I don't right now is it's very important for me to pool all of my viewers onto Twitch, because I'm extremely close to partner, and the only thing that matters is viewership numbers on Twitch, and I need to get everybody over here. Once I make partner, yeah, I'll dual stream to Twitch. YouTube, I don't care.
Needs a certain amount of armor
Close,
to not
though.
die to melee
Probably
attacks.
within the next week.
Armor that is provided by its regular gear. If the armor is not enough, the tank dies. The devs have to nerf the content, which means that looking for a trinket with armor is going to be pointless if not all tanks will see it as mandatory, making it not an actual choice. If the armor is too high, the trinket with armor is again pointless, which is the case that we've been having for the last couple of expansions. This applies to stamina as well. There is a reason we haven't had stamina flasks in a while, or why, throughout history, nobody really recommended stamina flasks. This is also to address the new ring that came out in 1107, which has a gem that gives you that stamina. Stamina and armor are dead stats that just have to exist no matter what for people to survive the content. And whenever they are there by default, they might as well just be baseline. This is similar to talents. Whenever you always pick the same talent no matter what, because it's either too strong or the spec just doesn't work without it, there is no choice there. So it eventually becomes baseline.
I mean, literally at this point, and I showed you guys this morning, Wowhead has the talents that you literally just click the link to copy the talent tree and then you paste it into the game. You're not even, I don't even know what the fuck the talents are what their names are anymore, or what they do. I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to take the biz one, copy, paste. Okay, good. I'm ready to raid. So he is right about that. None of it matters. You just pick the best one.
And armor on items. Can you explain to me what the fuck does 21,159 stamina on my helmet means?
No.
If I upgraded my two-handed
idea.
axe, I gain 85 strength, 749 stamina, 18 haste, and 10 versatility.
Yeah, who gives a shit about that? Why are you upgrading it? To go from 613 to 616. That's why you're upgrading it. I'm telling you, that's the only thing that matters.
Do any of these numbers mean anything?
No.
Or is it just the more, the better?
Yeah.
Whenever systems like these exist, it turns us into sheep that chase the herd to the next big number that comes out. That's not always bad, but when it's all the time, it just gets boring. The existence of item level is making it easier for people to figure out if something is an upgrade or not, since 99% of the time, higher item level means it is better. But that also means that nobody will look at the other stats save for the secondary pair combo. The solution is simple, but probably difficult to implement, and the solution is in our trinkets, which are the only ones that don't follow the dumb item level rule.
Trinkets are cool.
That is because they have interesting, often conditional effects that actually warrant a choice from the player on whether or not they are good for their character.
It's true.
And even more importantly, whether or not they can be played. And I am looking at you, Transmitter. This is why trinkets are the most sought after pieces of gear. This is why people can call out their names and say, I want a Spy Master or a Sack Brood. Quick, can you tell me the name of your belt right now? You know, the one you are wearing?
No idea.
Or better yet, can you tell me the name of the best belt in the game for you that you are chasing? Because I can. The best belt for you is a 639 item level.
Hold on, what the fuck is the Red Hook's Cummerbund? What the hell kind of name is that? I would have remembered that name. That's an interesting one.
Ka-ching! The trinket effects are usually called cantrips in the RPG community, which is a Dungeons and Dragons term. Not sure if it is where it originated. And we had cantrip weapons in the past. Occasionally raids have these, and whether the effects of those weapons make you want to pull your hairs out or not, you cannot argue that you at least remember them. You remember the Jarun spear from Rashok, or Nimue staff from Omirdrasil. Now those can be called epic.
I literally just talked about Jathis the Prison Blade. Like, I can't tell you what the fuck belt I had equipped in Shadowlands, but I could sure as hell tell you about that epic weapon I had.
While the rest might as well be color-coded blue. And we don't have to have all the items be cantrips. That would be a bit ridiculous. But if we have stat sticks, then by God, how about we make them good stat sticks? If you're going to make an epic shield for tanks, how about make it have either a ridiculous amount of stamina, and I mean a stupid amount like 200,000, or give it more block chance,
give
armor,
it leech,
or an effect to give you damage reduction proc when you get hit, and only 20,000 stamina instead. The problem with any of these changes is that it upsets the balance of the formula that the WoW team has for the game design, a formula that is easy to keep up with. When each patch you just need another set of 6 boots and not have to think creatively too hard about making them memorable. The problem with any of these systems is that they are painfully obvious and boring, to the point that more and more players are of the mindset of, man, but I just do the same thing this patch as last expansion. It's all just the same. Maybe the solutions I propose are bad and unrealistic. Fine. But please...
I mean, the game's been out for 20 years. Most likely. It's going to start to feel the same after that long. I do feel like, you know, they've added cool things to the game here and there. Hero talents I was afraid of, and I think they've done a decent job of kind of making some things feel a little bit different. And at the end of the day, like with WoW, with retail WoW, you either like it or you don't. You either like doing the things that you've been doing, or you don't like those things anymore. And that's just how it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to play. That's okay. It's not a big deal. And if you do like it, well, guess what? You're going to continue to, you know, to do the things that you've been doing. You're going to pump up your item level. You're going to kill the next big bad. You're going to do the Mythic Plus. Like, these are things that exist in this game. Sometimes I feel like I don't understand why people say, oh, it feels like I'm just doing the same thing. What the fuck are you doing in an FPS playing for the 300th time? What are you doing? You're doing the same shit. What, they added a new gun for the season? Oh, okay, so we added a new class this expansion. Same shit. I mean, what are you doing? If you're playing a game for 20 years, most likely you're doing the same thing, just with a new skin on it or a new numbers or something. And that's what I don't get when people complain about this. Can they introduce some cool new fun things to do? Yeah, it's called dragon riding. It's called the new drifting shit that they're going to have for the mounts on the ground. There are new things they introduced into the game. And they'll continue to, you know, add these cool little things. But at its core, World of Warcraft's an MMORPG. There will be raids. There will be dungeons. These things are going to always remain in the game, and those will always feel the same.
Please make items that I can remember, because I have yet to see someone be excited or make a YouTube video of a particular modern retail axe of a specific name that everyone knows what the topic of the discussion is. I don't want to go back to Classic, but I want to stop losing to Classic when it comes to basic RPG core pillars, man. It's been 20 years. Surely you can get 10 nerds around the table, put a pot of coffee there, and give them 8 hours to think of the coolest items any warrior, druid, mage, and so on can use and be excited about and chase in the new patch yet to be released.
Yeah, they did that. It was called Legion. That's why we all look back at Legion so fondly, because we all had these legendary items, legendary both in terms of lore and in terms of what they could do for you and when you equip them and the stuff that they gave, the abilities they gave you. That's why Legion was so much fun. Because yes, they did exactly what he's saying. They gave you this item. that completely changed your tune once you got it. They also added on top of that, not only did you have your Legion Legendary, you had those extra legendary items that you would get. There was a lot of cool things about Legion gearing, but you can't continue to do that forever. If everything's legendary all the time, then nothing's legendary. That's a problem.
Released. WoW has changed a lot, and the War Within is a great expansion and would be one of the best if the core
Chris, your brother was right. Yeah, it's true.
pillars can be addressed
He is a
and
truth
fixed
teller.
before we bleed out too many players. One of which is Mythic Plus, which has received very, very, very good changes.
It has.
But can it be saved? Click here and find out.
Yeah, does everything have to be saved? It's fine. It's fine. They at least changing up the crest currency, which is good. I've been asking for that for a while. At the end of the day, Mythic Plus is what it is. It's a harder version of the dungeon. Have there been better seasons? Fucking Dragonflight Season 3 shat all over anything the War Within has given us in terms of Mythic Plus, and hopefully they'll get back to that. I think the difficulty is hard for them to manage too. All in all, things feel the same. It's a 20-year-old game, guys. Things are going to feel the same. Do stats matter in WoW right now? No, it's an item level thing. Item level has kind of ruined stats in the game. It is what it is. Do I still enjoy playing WoW at its core? Yes, I do. I'm still a retail Andy, and I'll continue to play retail WoW and continue to do what? Bump up that item level. Why? Because I'm a fucking degenerate. Good video from Marcellian.